Story 1. Our town has a children's museum. It's a charming place, filled with engaging activities for children ranging from infants to around 9 years old. The baby and toddler areas are separated with gates that latch securely, understandably, for safety reasons. One afternoon, a woman, let's call her Karen, decided to assert her authority to make her toddler leave. Instead of entering the gated toddler area to retrieve her child properly, she simply opened the gate and called out, "It's time to leave now." Her child, clearly still wanting to play, didn't move. Rather than close the gate and go in to get the child herself, Karen chose to stand there, holding the gate open, and repeatedly called for her child to come. As a result, several other toddlers saw their chance and bolted out of the area. Karen did absolutely nothing to stop them and just continued yelling at her own child while keeping the gate wide open. Instant chaos ensued. Parents and even a grandparent scrambled in different directions, trying to retrieve the runaway toddlers. Some children made a beeline for the open elevators, others ran toward the balconies, a few went into the manager's office, and my own child was sprinting toward the staircase. I was about to catch her when she darted into the art room, which, although messy, was at least safe. Then, I noticed another toddler nearly reaching the stair landing. These stairs were 2 stories high and made of stone. I saw the child's grandmother trying her best to reach him, but she was nowhere near fast enough. So I made a split-second decision. I left my own daughter to her paint-covered fate and snatched up the toddler, Darius, returning him safely to his grateful grandmother. As this was happening, I heard a father shout, "Close the gate." He was struggling with one twin in full-on meltdown mode, while the other had darted through the open gate toward me and the paint room. Karen, still holding the gate open, snapped back at him, saying, "It's not my job to watch your kids. I've got 3 of my own to handle." At this point, I was acting as an unofficial shepherd, trying to guide toddlers away from the stairs. Meanwhile, paint was everywhere, and many of the unsupervised children without their paint-proof smocks were going wild in the art area. Apparently, my daughter's favorite color is yellow. The unexpected chaos drew the attention of a manager, who came over to assess the situation. 2 fathers immediately pointed toward Karen. At that moment, she finally picked up her own child and closed the gate. Instead of taking accountability, Karen turned to the manager and claimed she felt unsafe because the father had yelled, "Close the gate." She demanded that action be taken. By that time, the toddlers had been gathered and were safe again. I walked over, yellow-painted gremlin aka my daughter in arms, and joined the grandmother in backing up the fathers. We explained to the manager how irresponsible Karen's behavior had been. Karen responded by launching into a loud complaint about how it wasn't her responsibility to watch everyone else's children. The manager calmly informed her that she was banned from the museum. In response, Karen started screaming, prompting security to step in and escort her and her 3 children out of the building. I genuinely feel bad for her children, but honestly, how entitled do you have to be? A simple, "I'm sorry, I froze when the kids ran out. I wasn't thinking clearly," would have been acceptable. Literally anything would have been better than her attempting to portray herself as a victim of an unsafe situation, one that she directly caused by allowing multiple toddlers to run into dangerous areas. Story 2. As a kid in the single-digit age range, I spent my summers working for the family business, one part of which involved managing the concession contract at a small local music venue. Our menu mostly consisted of popcorn, burgers, fried chicken, pre-made salads, and drinks. However, there was also a small formal dining area with about 30 tables on a patio overlooking a wooded ravine. These tables were reserved in advance, but on particularly slow nights with few reservations, we would allow walk-ins. This restaurant area did not have a license to serve alcoholic beverages, so we were not permitted to offer wine with dinner. Unfortunately, acquiring a license for a seasonal, weather-dependent outdoor venue that operated only 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, simply wasn't worth the trouble. Additionally, since we were just the contracted concession operators and not the actual owners of the venue, we couldn't apply for a license ourselves even if we wanted to. One of the most frequent types of performances hosted at the venue were symphony orchestras and well-known string ensembles. We occasionally had concerts with once famous or moderately popular stars, but they were far fewer than the elegant performances. And where there are elegant performances, there are often refined but demanding patrons who insist on having wine with their meal. These individuals believed they absolutely deserved wine and didn't want to hear any answer other than yes. For the majority of patrons, we would politely explain that we did not have a license to serve or sell wine. We also made it clear that we could not give anyone permission to bring their own wine. Let me emphasize this: we could not give them permission. Liquor laws are strict in that regard. Enter the entitled couple, making a reservation by phone. We regularly dealt with people like this, and the conversation always followed the same predictable pattern. Wife: what kinds of wine do you serve? Us: I'm sorry, we do not have a liquor license, so we do not serve any wine. Wife: what kind of restaurant doesn't serve wine? This is a very special occasion. She would then name the occasion, as if that changed anything, and we can't enjoy it without wine. Can't you make an exception just this one time? Us: we apologize, but we do not have a liquor license. Wife: well, can you get one? How hard can it be? Us: silence. Wife: well, we'll just bring our own, and then you can serve it. Us: I'm sorry, but without a liquor license, we cannot serve wine, and the venue does not allow alcohol to be brought through the gate. Let me clarify, we had nothing to do with the venue policies or the gate. Their rules were their rules. Technically, there was a policy against bringing in alcohol, but people often brought picnic meals and snacks to enjoy on the grassy areas. Although the rules said no outside alcohol was allowed, they didn't inspect bags or coolers that clearly displayed beverage logos. For some of the big-name concerts, like the band Three Dog Night, us kids in the family could collect up to $50 in aluminum cans after the show by racing the venue's grounds crew to gather them first. Wife: so, we can't even bring our own wine. Us: I cannot give you permission, but they don't check the bags. The owners instructed all staff to phrase it exactly like that. We were never allowed to tell anyone they were permitted to bring in alcoholic beverages. However, because we operated under the venue's policies, and their unofficial policy was not to inspect bags, we were allowed to state that fact. About half of the people caught on to this subtle communication. They would ask, "You don't check the bags at the gate?" Well, would we get in trouble for having wine with dinner? To which we would respond, "We do not serve wine, that's all we're saying." Others would say, "I don't suppose you have any wine glasses we could borrow, do you?" "Certainly." "Would you like 2 or 4? Do you have a corkscrew we can borrow?" "Absolutely." "Great. Party of 2 for the Gottaclue family. We look forward to seeing you then." The other half, however, would yell, scream, insult, threaten, try to manipulate, or beg. If they had just taken a moment to be quiet and actually listen, they would have figured it out like the others did. But they didn't want that. They wanted to argue. They wanted to win more than they wanted to discreetly enjoy their inexpensive wine and pretend they were sophisticated. They wanted to act like refined adults for one night, but their behavior clearly said otherwise. People who don't listen when being shown how to navigate a situation without receiving direct permission really need to slow down and think. I once tried to help a man keep a brand new $8,000 furnace without violating policy, but he wasn't listening. Because of that, he walked away with nothing. I truly felt bad for him, but in the end, there was nothing more I could do. This wasn't a one-time incident, either. These types of conversations happened regularly throughout the season. It was always the same. Someone would call in expecting to get their way because they believed their event was important enough to override state laws and venue policies. I often wondered what made people think the rules didn't apply to them. Was it entitlement? A lack of understanding? Or did they just assume that if they pushed hard enough, someone would break the rules for them? It didn't matter how politely or clearly we explained it the moment they heard "no wine," it was like a switch flipped. For some people, enjoying an evening under the stars while listening to world-class musicians wasn't enough without their glass of Chardonnay. Now, don't get me wrong, most patrons were pleasant, understanding, and adaptable. They'd ask if wine was available, hear the explanation, and either shrug it off or thank us for the clarification. But then came the other kind, the ones who thought that, because they wore expensive clothes and name-dropped their anniversary, birthday, or some other special occasion, they should receive different treatment. Sometimes they would even try to bribe us. Look, I'll give you $50 if you just let me bring in a bottle. No one has to know. Sorry, but a $50 tip doesn't make us want to lose our contract or get in trouble with local authorities. Besides, we weren't against people bringing wine in, we just couldn't say it was okay. There's a difference. It wasn't about being difficult. It was about navigating strict legal guidelines while doing our best to accommodate people's expectations without putting ourselves or the business in jeopardy. That's why our phrasing was so precise. I can't give you permission, but they don't check the bags. It was all about what was unsaid, what was implied, but never confirmed. Some people got that. They'd smile over the phone or wink in person, say, "I think we'll be just fine," and we'd all move on. Others just didn't get it or refused to get it. Honestly, as a kid, it was both amusing and frustrating. I got to see how different people responded to boundaries. Some pushed, some adapted, some raged, some laughed it off. It was a strange kind of life lesson that stuck with me. The people who really listen, tend to find ways to get what they want without fighting for it. They know how to read between the lines, and more importantly, they respect the fact that not everything is about them. Looking back, that summer job taught me more about human nature than most school lessons ever did. It was a crash course in diplomacy, customer service, and the art of saying no without actually saying it. It also gave me a deep appreciation for those patrons who could roll with the punches, make the best of things, and enjoy the music and the night even without the wine. Because, really, if a string quartet playing under the stars isn't enough for you without a drink in hand, then maybe the problem isn't the policy. Maybe it's the attitude. And to the guy with the $8,000 furnace who missed his chance because he wouldn't listen, I still hope he figured it out later. Because sometimes the answer you need is right in front of you if you're just willing to stop talking long enough to hear it. Story 3. Some backstory. This story happened about 2 years ago when I used to work for a very well-known animal shelter focused on the prevention of cruelty to animals. This was in Florida, though I won't name the specific shelter. I worked there for about 5 years and loved that job deeply, but eventually had to leave once I moved too far away. Despite that, I always try to donate whenever I can. During and after that job, I made it a habit to keep a leash, pet food, toys, a cat carrier, and other essentials in my car at all times in case I came across a loose animal. That includes even reptiles like snakes or other uncommon pets. You'd be surprised how often they escape. Having these supplies on hand helped me contain animals safely while trying to locate their owners. Working in the field taught me how frequently pets actually get loose, and often it's not even the pet owner's fault. I also became aware of how often people leave their pets inside their cars while shopping. In most cases, they leave the vehicle running with someone inside, but there have been several times when I've seen cars left with just the windows slightly cracked. In those situations, I always inform the owners about the laws in Florida regarding leaving pets in vehicles. You'd be surprised, though, maybe not how many people don't know these laws. What I'm about to describe is, to this day, the most extreme situation I've ever encountered. On to the story. On this particular day, it was in the 90s Fahrenheit, but it felt like it was over 100 degrees. Welcome to Florida. I had just gotten off my shift and was heading into my local supermarket to buy a case of water when I noticed a small puppy in the back seat of a sport utility vehicle. The puppy appeared to be a pit bull and Labrador mix, only a few months old. It looked extremely tired and was panting heavily. There was no one inside the vehicle, and the windows were only slightly cracked open. I immediately rushed inside to the customer service desk and informed them about the puppy. I said I would call the police if the owner didn't come out soon. The store associate made an announcement over the loudspeaker asking for the owner of the vehicle. That same associate kindly handed me a bottle of water to give to the puppy once we got him out. I went back to my car to grab a leash, bowl, and some toys, along with my keys. I also carry a special device that can safely break a car window in emergencies. I called the police to report the situation. In Florida, you are legally allowed to break into a car to rescue an animal in distress, but only after calling the police first. I told them that if the owner didn't come out shortly, I would break the window. They gave me permission to do so and asked me to stay on the phone with them during the incident. A crowd had begun to gather around the vehicle, with everyone clearly concerned about the puppy. After another 8 minutes passed with no sign of the owner, I told the police operator that I was going to break the window. I handed my phone to a passerby and went to the front passenger window. The puppy was on the back driver's side. Using the emergency tool, I punched out the window. Thankfully, I was wearing long pants and cleaning boots, so I crawled in safely and unlocked the door. Another concerned person opened the rear door and gently took the puppy out of the car. The poor pup was clearly in distress, so we brought him into my vehicle, which already had the air conditioning running. I helped him drink some water just as the police officers arrived. About 5 minutes later, a woman, clearly the puppy's mother, and a child came out of the store pushing a cart full of groceries. As soon as she saw the broken window, she started screaming, demanding to know who damaged her property. She was yelling about how someone was going to pay for the damage and immediately threatened to file a lawsuit. The police officers walked over to her, trying to calm her down and explain that her puppy was in distress and had to be removed from the car for his safety. "That's ridiculous," she snapped. "We were only in there for 15 minutes, and the puppy was fine. We need to go home now, so give us back the dog." Hearing that made my stomach turn. "Are you serious?" I said, frustrated. In just 15 minutes, the inside of a vehicle at this temperature can reach 115 degrees Fahrenheit, about 45 to 50 degrees Celsius. That's enough to seriously harm or even kill any animal or child. It's like putting them in an oven. "I'm taking this dog to the veterinarian." She looked stunned that anyone had the audacity to talk back to her. Her child, who looked to be about 5 years old, started crying and pointing at me while asking, "Why is that lady taking Rusty?" The woman began charging toward me, but before she could get far, the officers stepped between us. "Who do you think you are?" she yelled. "You're stealing my dog. That woman can't just take him away. Do something." One of the officers calmly but firmly stepped behind her, placed her in handcuffs, and began reading her rights while another officer stayed with the crying child. From what I later heard, the child's father came to pick him up soon afterward. As I walked toward the driver's side of my car, I turned my back slightly, revealing the large embroidered logo of the well-known animal shelter I had worked for, printed in bold letters on the back of my shirt. I got into my vehicle and drove off with the puppy to the local veterinary clinic. Thankfully, Rusty, who was later renamed Percy, was going to be okay. He was heavily dehydrated, but the vet confirmed that if I hadn't intervened when I did, the poor pup could have suffered internal damage or even lost his life. The woman was arrested and charged with animal cruelty. The judge ruled in favor of the shelter and awarded us custody of the dog. The woman was also prohibited from owning any pets in the future, and that restriction applied to anyone living with her as well. Apparently, this was not her first offense. The court noted that she already had a pending case for mistreating another dog before this incident involving Rusty. Rusty, now Percy, made a full recovery and was adopted by a wonderful family with 2 kids and another dog named Rocco. The 2 pups became fast friends and were as close as brothers. Saying goodbye was difficult. I would have adopted Percy myself, but my apartment at the time didn't allow pets. Still, I was genuinely happy to see him go to a loving home and start a better life. I do feel bad for the little boy. He was probably too young to understand what was happening and didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of all this. But I can't say I have any sympathy for his mother. What she did was reckless and irresponsible, and I'm just grateful that Percy got a second chance. Story 4. Facts before the story. This took place last year, before the era of face masks, social distancing, and similar precautions. So my memory of the details might be a bit hazy. I mostly remember the general events. When I was younger, I experienced a traumatic event that I'd rather not go into. As a result, I have severe phobias about being touched. For example, my boyfriend once came up behind me to give me a hug, and I screamed, dropped to the floor, and started crying. Even now, if we're watching TV together, he always asks for permission before putting his arm around me to avoid triggering a panic reaction. At this grocery store, employees wear either a green or blue polo shirt with an apron of the opposite color, so if it's a green shirt day, they wear blue aprons and black pants. On the day in question, I was wearing a bright yellow sundress with daisies all over it. I didn't look anything like an employee. The story. I was at the grocery store picking out ingredients to make dinner. I kept changing my mind about what I wanted, so I was putting items back and walking back and forth between aisles. Eventually, I found myself standing in the pasta aisle, looking over the many options, trying to decide. I heard someone say, "Excuse me," and assumed I was in the way. I politely moved my cart aside. Then, a much louder "excuse me" followed, and suddenly, someone reached out and grabbed my bicep. The grip was so firm that I ended up with a bruise that lasted for weeks. In that moment, my body reacted before my brain could catch up. I screamed and my arm shot out. It wasn't quite a punch, it was more like a reflexive slap. But it connected with this woman's face. I don't know if I was stronger than I realized or if her dental work was just fragile. But she fell to the floor and started yelling while spitting out her teeth. I stood there, breathing heavily, trying to calm myself down and make sense of what had just happened. A store employee rushed over to her and asked if she was okay or if she needed help. She immediately began to spin a dramatic story about how his fellow employee referring to me suddenly snapped and hit her for no reason. He barely managed to respond with, "She doesn't work here," before an elderly man approached and said, "I saw the whole thing. She," pointing at the woman, "grabbed her, pointing at me, and she merely defended herself." I spoke to the gentleman afterward, and he told me that he recognized my post-traumatic stress symptoms right away. He knew that being grabbed like that would have triggered someone in my situation. Meanwhile, the woman was still sitting on the floor, spitting out teeth and glaring furiously at the elderly man for stepping in to defend me. Then he said to the employee, "Check your cameras." At that, she suddenly jumped to her feet and bolted out of the store. The employee told me to stay put while he went down another aisle. He returned with a bottle of iced tea and handed it to me, saying I looked like I needed something to help calm down. I was grateful for the small act of kindness in the middle of such chaos. Eventually, the woman took me to court. My lawyer had me wear the exact same bright yellow sundress from that day. He also brought in the employee, dressed in the standard store uniform. Then he asked the woman, "What made you think this dress is anything like the employee's uniform?" She had no response. Her lawyer ended up apologizing to the court. The judge dismissed the case and ordered her to pay for my attorney's fees. That was the end of it. I know I'm not the best storyteller, and this all happened a while ago, but thank you for reading and bearing with me. Story 5. Kelly never dated a lot. She would go out with friends all the time, but not really on a one-on-one date though. My now husband and I had been dating for almost 5 years, early high school, and had been engaged for over a year, wanted a spring wedding and needed time and to save money. Kelly was a bridesmaid, not my choice, and only attended one bridal shower. I think I had 4. Well, our wedding was less than 3 months away, and I was very excited. When Kelly walked into the house, we both still lived at home, and announced, "I'm getting married." I absolutely congratulated her and asked, "Who are you marrying?" Kelly said a name I honestly don't even remember, and everyone goes, "Oh," because no one even knew who he was. Grandma asks the critical question, "And when is this going to take place?" Kelly replies, "I just figured we would get married at Katie's wedding. It will be cheaper because everyone is already there. The bar and food are already paid for, etc." Shocked faces all around. My parents aren't paying for my wedding, I am. I'm at a loss for words, and I just left and went to my fiancé's apartment. After I calm down, we come up with a plan. We feign excitement for Kelly and amp up the emotional scale by giving her a list of wedding to-dos that she needs to get done, like months ago. I even offer to take her dress shopping so that our dresses won't clash, ask if she's okay with my bridesmaids, and if she wants to replace someone in her place, take her bridesmaid dress, etc. Kelly tells me, "Don't worry about my wedding, just worry about your own," so I leave her alone. In the next few days, Kelly comes home with a really old wedding dress, not nice, not vintage, not an antique, just ratty, old and ugly, that doesn't even fit her. This dress was at least 4 sizes too large. When she tried it on to show all of us, it had tears in the lace and stains of an unknown source. Mom asked where she got it, and where was she going to get this altered in time for the wedding, Kelly says. "I thought you and Grandma could fix it for me." Grandma just laughs and says, "My days of sewing are over, arthritic hands." Mom says, "I don't think I can fix this. Where on earth did you get this?" Kelly pitches a fit and huffs. "You're all just jealous. I got a dress for free, and it's going to look better than Katie's." After she storms out, the 3 of us roll our eyes and laugh. You might be wondering why my family didn't try to tell Kelly she couldn't get married at my wedding. Well, 1, everyone knew it was never, ever going to happen. 2, if we had just said no, then she might try to really ruin my wedding. And 3, we were hoping that if Kelly did get married, she wouldn't be around causing drama for everyone. Less than a month before my wedding, Kelly hasn't said or done anything concerning her wedding. She has even gone to some of her fittings for her bridesmaid dress. Then one night, my brother and I ask Kelly, "So, when do we get to meet this guy?" Kelly starts on one of her rants that she's not getting married. Why would she want to be a part of my lame wedding? Her wedding will be so much classier and bigger than my wedding, etc. I'm off the hook. Less than a week before the wedding, Kelly walks in the house with a purple mohawk. Grandma asks her what the heck she was thinking. Kelly says, "My dress is lilac, and my hair is purple. I will be the prettiest girl at the wedding." I really didn't care what she looked like. I honestly didn't think she was even going to show up for the wedding. She was very embarrassed about her wedding. Mom and Grandma made it a point to tell everyone at the last bridal shower, the only one she attended, about Kelly getting married too. Wedding day was good, lots of drama all around, and relatives and in-laws raised some eyebrows at my sister's hair. But the day wasn't about her, and she sat in the back of the reception, her choice, because it was closest to the bar. Story 6. Hey Reddit, I've been lurking here for a while and never really had the courage to post anything, but today, I need to vent. I need to speak up, because saying anything at home feels like lighting a fuse in a room full of gasoline. I'm in my 20s and still living at home not by choice, but because the job market is incredibly difficult right now. I'm retraining in a new field. It's like starting a second apprenticeship, doing everything I can to move forward, applying to dozens of jobs, and hoping something eventually works out. And while that's already stressful enough, what makes it worse is the person I should be able to rely on, my mom, is the one who makes everything feel even heavier. She's the kind of entitled parent who believes that being my mother means she's always right, always justified, always the victim when things don't go her way. If something goes wrong in my life, a job rejection, a bad day, burnout, her response isn't comfort. It's blame. Her favorite line? "Your mindset is the problem." I could apply to 10 jobs in a week, putting real energy and hope into each one. And when I get nothing but silence or rejections, her response is, "Well, you were expecting failure, and that's what you got." No, I wasn't. I was hoping. But she doesn't understand the difference. She can't. She hasn't had to apply for a job in decades. The last time she looked for work, she walked in, said, "I'll work for free," and just like that she was hired. She genuinely has no clue how hard things are now, yet she talks to me like she's a career expert and I'm just lazy or unmotivated. And when I try to explain how different things are today, how emotionally exhausting it is to try again and again in a broken system, she gets upset. Not just mildly annoyed, but genuinely furious. She'll storm off, slam doors, refuse to talk, and sulk like a child. And somehow, I always end up being the one who has to apologize. Not because I did something wrong, but because I dared to stand up for myself. That's the pattern. Every time I express how I feel or try to set a boundary, she plays the victim. Suddenly, she's too old for this, or she'll say, "I'm just doing my best." And if I don't immediately back down and comfort her, then I'm the ungrateful one. I'm the bad guy. This woman doesn't want conversation. She wants submission. She wants me to sit there, smile, nod, and thank her even when she's hurting me emotionally. If I don't, she acts like I'm the monster. Growing up, nothing was ever good enough. Got a good grade? You can do better next time. Did something kind? That's what you should be doing anyway. Every win was ignored, and every flaw became a full-blown indictment of who I am. Now that I'm an adult, she's even less of a mother. She expects me to organize my own birthday, bake my own cake, and act like everything's fine. But when it's her birthday or anyone else's, suddenly, I'm the family caterer. I bake, I serve, I smile. One rule for her, another for me. She can't stand when I take a mental health day or just spend time alone in my room. If I sleep in or stay quiet for a while, I get passive-aggressive comments like, "Wow, wasting the whole day again?" She doesn't ask for help, she waits until she's upset and then lashes out because I didn't magically know she needed something. As if I'm supposed to have some kind of sixth sense or telepathy to detect when she wants something done. But here's what cuts the deepest. If I stand up for myself, if I calmly explain how her behavior affects me, she shuts down. She plays the poor me card. She says I always twist her words, or that she can't do anything right. She makes it impossible to have a real conversation because any challenge to her behavior becomes an attack in her eyes. She expects me to constantly prove that I love and respect her, but she has never once truly acknowledged how hard I'm trying. She wants me to show endless gratitude just for being allowed to live at home, while using that fact as leverage to dismiss any of my needs or struggles. She calls me dramatic, says I live in a fantasy world. Once she even mocked me by saying I have Team Fortress 2 pyro vision, like I just make problems up in my head. But this isn't fantasy. This is what it's like to live with someone who treats love like a currency you owe interest on. And on top of everything, she's deeply into conspiracy theories. Misinformation about vaccinations, choosing alternative treatments over scientific ones, the full spectrum. One time I had a serious medical concern, hemorrhoids, which run in the family, and she refused to acknowledge it. Said it was because I eat wrong and that I just have to think healthy. Meanwhile, her father had the same issue, and she herself deals with varicose veins. But logic and facts have no place in her worldview. So yes, I still live at home, and yes, I'm thankful for the support I do receive. But the emotional cost is high. My peace, my mental well-being, and my sense of independence, they're taxed every single day. And if I ever want peace, I have to pretend. Pretend she's right. Pretend I'm not hurt. Pretend everything is okay. But I'm not okay. I'm exhausted. Exhausted from walking on eggshells. Exhausted from being the only one who ever has to apologize. Exhausted from being the scapegoat in my own life. Someday I'll get out of here, and when I do, I'm not just leaving the house, I'm reclaiming my voice, my space, and my future. Thanks for listening, Reddit.